Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the Wiki Comic Book Roundup. We're starting up a little bit late this week. It's been a busy day. It's Free Comic Book Day, so happy Free Comic Book Day 2022, everybody. But as it's Free Comic Book Day, I spent the day working in my local comic book shop, getting people their first hit, their free first hit. But yeah, so we're getting a bit of a late start on things. Anyway. Also, we will be looking at two of this week's of this year's Free Comic Book Day comics tonight. One in this video, one in the next video. Anyway, getting things started, we've got Giant Size X-Men, Thunderbird. So, at the end trial of Magneto, Thunderbird, the first X-Men to have died, was resurrected. We open with his resurrection, but after that he went home to Arizona, just to see his family, and he explains that the most of his tribe was wiped out by the Hellfire Club. Well, he doesn't mention that part, but yeah, there's the Hellfire Club in retaliation for his brother. James having left the Hellions to join the New Mutants. But turns out that not everyone was living on the reservation at the time, and so his grandmother, his grandfather's ex-wife, she had moved elsewhere, and apparently the cops had shown up and taken all the elders in the area. So we've got a note from Thunderbird to Joe Carnation about his costume. But yeah, Thunderbird shows up at the police station and manhandles the law enforcement, the cops who have imprisoned his remaining tribal elders, while a group called the Heritage Initiative is en route. But they show up. They're led by a man named Ed Martinek, who has power of his own, turning into basically a werewolf. But him and Thunderbird duke it out. There's a flashback to John's death, and I believe it was Uncanny X-Men number 93. But before he's able to kill Martinek, John's grandmother stops him. And he plants a gate flower outside her house, and James Proudstar walks through it, truly meeting his grandmother for the first time. And but John's trying to find his, he's going, it's largely about him reflecting on finding his place in the world now. But the issue ends with him basically saying, maybe he doesn't win all the fights ahead, but you can be damn sure he's gonna pick every one of them, which we've kind of already seen a bit on in X-Men Red. So I really enjoyed this. One of the things that is talked about in Thunderbird's thoughts on the issue are the fact that he was kind of seen for years as being a martyr for Xavier's cause, and that's pretty much how I knew the character. I think I might have happened upon a flashback issue. Like, I think there's the X-Force -1 issue. It focuses on Warpath and as a kid with Thunderbird, or at least I've read. But yeah, that's the extent. I knew how he died. I've since read the reprint, a reprint of Giant Size X-Men #1 to get an idea of who the character was. So, but I mean, I read it because I was able to read it, but not just to learn about get an idea for Thunderbird, but it gave me a better idea. So, yeah, good. I'm. That's one of the things I really love about the Krakoan era is just everyone how the possibilities of the resurrection protocols. Anyway, moving on to our next book, though, we've got Marauders #2. Where we left off, the Marauders were on their way to Shi'ar space to find some of the first mutants who apparently were the prisoners or were being held by the Shi'ar. And the Crimson Kin, a secretive cult, a secretive group within the Shi'ar Imperium, basically kind of maybe not so much took over so much as just informed Majestrix Zandra what of certain truths about Shi'ar history, and which resulted in Zandra basically saying, yeah, by all means send a fleet to stop the Marauders from getting here. But we open with an odd bit with Lockheed, which I imagine will be picked up on later. But Zandra is told. Zandra is talking with the leader of the Crimson Kin, while Eric the Red, their operative, is dealing with the Marauders. Turns out that the Crimson Kin have technology known as hard skin, allowing him to make holographic constructs to fight with him. So he makes constructs of the Marauders. With Bishop kind of saying, there's still energy, so tries to absorb it, and but there's kind of like, yeah, fine, let him choke on the power. We also get a write-up about the King Crimson Chronicle entry upload 461191 about the hard skin. As well as a communique between Delphos, leader of the Crimson Kin, and Betel about Delphos's talk with Zandra. Very much making it clear that Zandra knows what she needs to know. But their ship is exploding. But Saunders puts everyone into a dreamscape construct based on the movie Seeker 3000, featuring Kingo of the Eternals. But meanwhile, Cassandra Nova is fighting a member of the King Crimson, while the rest of the Marauders plan. I'm trying to figure just kind of what's going to happen in 7 seconds. And the issue ends with Zandra's flagship showing up, and her pretty much being asked, told to give the order to obliterate the Marauders floating in space. The new Marauders book is definitely starting off on an interesting note, that's for sure. Anyway, moving on, we've got Free Comic Book Day, Avengers, X-Men, Eternals, Judgement Day. So Judgement Day is an upcoming crossover between the Avengers, the X-Men, and the Eternals. This features 3 stories concerning each of the groups. get some history, but for example, just shy of 1 million years ago, the eternal Uranos met with Odin, and to basically explain that a group of telepathic monkeys, or as 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 Odin refers to them, thinky monkeys, is about to be wiped out by Uranos. But and so, in exchange for some mead, which according to Odin tastes bitter, he allows it to happen. Recently, some creature attacked New York. The Avengers showed to stop it, as do Icarus and Circe. Who take it down, and turns out, however, that the Eternal Jack of Knives has infiltrated Krakoa and witnessed the recent resurrection of Scott Summers, and reports this back to Druig, explaining that the mutants and death aren't a thing anymore; they're eternal. Druig states, however, that no, they're immortal at best. But the question becomes: is this mutation a deviation or not? And we get a nice splash page with all three teams to wrap up the first story. Which brings us to Bloodline. A young woman in Atlanta is dealing with a sore loser, and a young woman named Brielle is dealing with a vampire named Eternal, Eturnal, a vampire and a sore loser. Apparently, he lost a gaming tournament, and Brielle is able to take him down in large part because of some of the silver she carries. She gets home later, and her mom pulls a case out from underneath her mattress, which includes a picture of Brielle's father, Eric Brooks, better known as Blade. Written on the picture is a note: Saffron, I know you'll keep her safe. This should help, Eric. And it's the cases. There's a katana and some of Blade's other more recognizable weapons. And then we have, we've got an analysis of Krakoa by Moira McTaggart after having forcibly left Krakoa. Explaining Krakoa was her idea because she wanted all bad eggs in one basket, but a cure for the X gene eluded her. In 100 years, who knows what mutantdom will be? In 1,000 years, mutants could rule the planet, and so they cannot let mutants win. Krakoa must not be forever. Meanwhile, it turns out that Mary Jane Watson is a spokesperson for or brand ambassador for Krakoa's miracle medicines. Apparently, her Aunt Anna was starting to become senile. Or was not senility, dementia. Was starting to develop dementia, and thanks to the Krakoan drugs, well, she's had a recovery. And we get some shots of the X-Men facing off against the Avengers and how that could go. Which includes Wolverine gutting Iron Man, Thor smiting Cyclops, Magneto crushing Cap's skull with his shield, Captain Marvel snapping Rogue's neck, which that seems a bit personal. Elsewhere, Mary Jane and her aunt return home, but they have a visitor, Moira, who wants MJ's invitation to the Hellfire Gala. And she asks MJ a question. Or tells her to ask her who should be wearing, and MJ humors her. Which Moira says that when MJ wakes up, Moira will be wearing MJ. And that is where the issue ends. Some interesting things. So MJ at the Hellfire Gala will actually be Moira. Good to know. I have to wonder how if that's something that might be mentioned possibly in Amazing Spider-Man, which we'll be getting to later. Fingers crossed. Continuity is always a nice thing. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Avengers Forever, number 5. So this issue, rather than continuing the story of of the ever-growing multiversal Avengers, focuses on Doom above all. So, Doom, this Doom is basically wearing the skin suit, armor made from the skin of his true love. And apparently he's the only one of the multiversal Masters of Evil that hasn't laid claim to any of the Earths they've conquered. Ghost Goblin, Phoenix, Kid Thanos, Black Skull, Killmonger, they've all claimed Earths, but he hasn't. But before the timeline disappears, however, it turns out that he goes the future and grabs that Earth's Doom. And shows them his true visage. And reveals he doesn't have unlike other doctrines, he does not have an army of Doombots. He has an army of Dooms. But he explains that there's more to what he did. With the armor. He stripped her living flesh from her bones, forged with an armor fueled by the power of a sacrifice. But it's not just her skin. He went and killed another version of himself and used that version's skin because he maxed out the suit, the magics of the suit. This has been something he's been doing for a while now. And he kills these dudes generally by strangling them. He doesn't use his powers. No, it's personal. And he's explaining all this to a Man-Thing Doom. And once Man-Thing Doom realizes, this Doom is hardcore, well, he bows before him, and Doom above all tells him to remove his own tongue and then clean up the mess. And it turns out that they are... he has claimed a world for himself. A Doom variant is basically Doom and Ego the Living Planet. And that is where the issue ends. Man, that's just crazy. Oh boy, that's yeah. Moving on to our next book, though, we've got Iron Man number 19. Where we left off, Korvac was standing above a powerless and seemingly dying Tony Stark. And Tony insults him, and even, but asks, when was the last time Michael was truly human? Korvac, that is. And he manages to convince Korvac to, give up his powers, at least for the moment. And Korvac beats the holy hell out of Stark. And Stark then tells him, "Yeah, I'm OD. I'm dying. I'm dying from being mugged and from morphine withdrawal. So yeah, either you're gonna beat me to death or I'm gonna die from this. So whichever." And Korvac makes a decision. Takes Tony to a hospital, then walks up to the top of a building and seemingly steps off the ledge. A week later, Patsy is taking Tony to rehab. Apparently, she was his only choice to take him there, and she's also his only choice in picking him up. When he gets to his room, there's a note waiting for him from Frogman telling him that Frogman was thinking of him and that Tony can do this. And that is where the issue ends. I gotta say, that's not how I expected the overall Korvac arc to end. And so yeah, there's a part of me wants to say it was anticlimactic, but at the same time, it's like not really. I mean, he made Korvac basically give up cosmic power. So yeah. Moving on to our last book for the moment, though, we've got Thor number 750, Thor 24, going from the new number 1. Or most recent number 1. Celebrating Thor's 60th anniversary as the Marvel Comics version of Thor. Alright, so where we left off, Odin was dead. And seemingly his spirit was in a reforged Mjolnir. So we've got Thor, of course, gives this, is officiating the funeral of the late Allfather. In attendance at the funeral are Clea, Cosmic Ghost Rider, Silver Surfer, Frost Giants, the Watcher, the Celestials, the Silver Surfer, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Ulik the Rock Troll, the League of Realms. Well, I don't see Spider-Man, but the Avengers. Anyone who's everyone, pretty much. But Thor reflects on his father and their checkered past, and it's just absolutely moving. It's truly great. Yeah. Then we have a handful of additional stories written by written and drawn by previous Thor creative teams, including one by writer-artist Walter Simonson, focusing on the origins of one of his most noteworthy additions to the Thor mythos, Beta Ray Bill. The story's called Prologue, but like I said, it goes into how the creation of the android that the Corbinite, now known as Beta Ray Bill, calls his body. But he then takes over their arc, and the Corbinite race goes from leaves the burning galaxy, 10,000 starships exploding into space, and the hopes, dreams, and fears of the corporate race into the future as the burning galaxy begins to explode behind them. Then we've got The Seduction from Dan Jurgens, who took over Thor in the mid-90s. After the events of Thor number 20, well, late 90s, Thor number 25 from 1998, Thor had some new weapons, and Odin, and he figures he can use those weapons to restore the Recorder who had been hanging out with him. But Odin stops him, explaining that the more he relies on those weapons, the less worthy he becomes. Thor doesn't believe him, and then Magog shows up. They duke it out, and Thor is practically blinded with rage before Odin's able to reveal the truth to him. He's actually fighting Balder. And so Thor gives up his weapons, and Odin restores life to the Recorder. And Thor and the Recorder fly off towards Asgard. Next we have Benedictions by J. Michael Straczynski and Oliver Coipel, the creative team on Thor back in the I want to say in the mid to late 2000s. Thor's called a lawyer so he could write a will. He's got a list of he's like inheritances, but this person gets this, so on and so forth. But a message for the people of Midgard. Also explaining what it is, where he wants his remains deposited. The Rings of Saturn. But something's coming. Next up, we have What Comes Next by Al Ewing and Lee Garrett, which focuses on Loki. Loki steps through a portal into the Sixth Infinity that his traveling partner is with him. Goes back and sees her, and then he's got Asgard in his pocket. He goes through and he goes to Asgard, but it's during the funeral. And he taunts his older self. You did this clearly. But Loki realizes that no, he wasn't responsible. And then Loki also changes into female Loki and returns to the end of the Sixth Infinity. Makes a door and then goes to step through on a journey into mystery. Premise will be continued into Avengers Beyond #1, which I doubt I'll be reading. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Then we've got Who Wields Who by Jason Aaron, about Odin struggling with the newly forged Mjolnir against a bunch of giants, eventually slaughtering them. And then back to the funeral, where it is asked that the idea is that Thor is supposed the boat with Odin's remains is to be lit afire. The bow in question to light the boat was carved by Hawkeye, making sure its flight would be strong and true. The bow's string was woven from the abyss black hair of Hela, goddess of death, a gift or perhaps a threat from Niflheim. But Thor ignites the arrow. The boat floats off into space. And Sif explains that the people are afraid of Thor. He begins to pull the arrow back, but he can't. And he asks Loki to do it. And so Loki does so. The second son of the second son igniting his pyre for the universe to see. That night, Thor is removing his armor, and Mjolnir is talking to him. And Thor wants to answer why. Why is Odin talking to him through Mjolnir? And Odin explains he cannot go to Valhalla. Says he tried. His spirit passed. He walked to the gates of Valhalla to find his brothers, his father. The gates were open, broken. The great halls empty. Not a soul remained. Valhalla is gone. And that is where the issue ends. My appreciation for Thor has been an on-off thing. And to be fair, I do one of these days need to track down the Simonson run, preferably in a collected format. But anyway, that was definitely something, especially all the additional stories. But that's gonna do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.